It's the holiday season, and that means it's time for some gifts. So the 12 days leading up to Christmas, I'm giving away over $4,500 worth of video editing prizes. And each day I'll reveal a new prize. You can enter Premiere Gal's 12 days of giving by going to premieregal.com/12 days. Today we're revealing the first prize, which is a LaCie 1TB mobile SSD. There will be one winner per prize, and all the winners will be announced just after Christmas. Thanks to all the partners who donated, and now let's get into the video. Let's start with something simple yet powerful. The beat impact effect is great for transitions or simply spicing up a boring shot. Let me show you how to make it. Here in Premiere Pro, I have some stock footages lined up to the track from Envato. I want the impact effect to emphasize the bass that comes in here. Start by creating a new adjustment layer and placing it in the timeline. The impact will be fast, so we need to shorten this to only a few frames long. Up in the Effects tab, I'll add the transform effect to the adjustment layer. Now let's move the playhead to the start of the layer, and in the transform effect, let's set a keyframe for the scale and rotation. Let's move forward just 2 frames and let's add some rotation and scale it up so you don't get any background leaking through. And let's just copy the keyframes from the start and paste it here so everything goes back to normal after the impact. Finally, let's bump up the shutter angle to get that motion blur. Now that we have everything working, you can just hold Alt or Option and duplicate this adjustment layer to place it anywhere you want the impact to happen again, preferably where that bass hits. And by the way, I'm Kelsey, and if this video is helping you out so far, be sure to give it a thumbs up as well as subscribe. And if you want to follow along with the different project files that we created for this video, you can join my Patreon by going to patreon.com/premieregal. All right, let's get back into the effects. The lock-on effect is super satisfying to see. So let's lock on to somebody that is bobbing their head to the beat of the music. I'm going to grab stock footage of a person vibing to some music straight from this Envato plugin, and more on that later. Place the clip in the timeline, and once we have the footage lined up to the song, let's create the lock-on effect. Now, I showed you how to do this effect properly inside of After Effects, but this time I'm going to show you some manual ways of doing it inside of Premiere. The key to this effect is to always have something centered in the frame, no matter how it's moving. So to make this easier, let's press Ctrl or Command plus R to open up the ruler. We want to drag out the horizontal and the vertical ruler lines to use as a guide. For this particular clip, I want to use the middle of his glasses as the point to follow. Let's move the footage so the middle of his glasses is at the intersecting part of the guide. Now let's keyframe the position and go through the clip and move it so the midpoint of his glasses is always at the same spot, using the guidelines as, well, a guide. Now, once it's done, we have to scale up the whole clip so you don't see the background. And luckily, this footage is in 4K and my timeline is only in 1080p, so we have plenty of space to work with. And it's important to remember that you want to use as high resolution as possible when you're doing this effect, so you have some more wiggle room. And of course, with AI, there are ways to hack this. For example, with Topaz Video AI, you can scale up 720p to 8K even, so that way you have more wiggle room to scale up and down to create this effect. And now that we're done, here's the result. Now it is time to go into the uncharted territory of Trippy FX. Now, what I'm talking about are those types of effects that mimic the psychedelic experience. There are many different ways that you can achieve this in Premiere Pro. Let's start here with the background morphing effects. And this is when everything becomes kind of bendy and watery. So we're going to use the turbulent displace effect. Let's drag and drop this effect to the footage, and immediately things get a bit wonky. Under displacement, I'm going to change to turbulent smoother because I like the look of this, but you can go through the list to see if you like one better. For this particular scene, I want this effect to only be applied to the background, so it feels more like he's the one experiencing it. Under the turbulent displace effect, let's click this pen icon and draw a mask around our subject. Now hit invert, add some feathering, and there we go. You can mess with the size and complexity to your liking, but I'm cool with how this is. Now it's keyframing time. Let's keyframe the amount so it starts from being fairly normal to very intense very quickly. Let's check it out. Trippy. Oh, I didn't see you there. I was just looking through some background music here for this video right in Premiere using our sponsor Envato Elements. Now Envato has recently introduced AI search in the web browser version and inside their new plugin for Premiere Pro. And I gotta tell you, finding stock assets has never been easier. And that's not even the coolest part. For example, if you have some placeholder B-rolls, you can just move the playhead to a clip in your timeline and Envato can find a similar video for you. And the same thing works for finding sound effects and their music. With an Envato Elements subscription, you can download unlimited stock footage, music, sound effects, and even graphics templates. And the best part is that you can use them in any type of project that you're working on. So try out Envato's new AI search for yourself. You can use my link below to get 70% off your first month of an Envato Elements subscription. And as always, thanks to Envato for always supporting what we do here at Premiere Gal. And now let's get back into some more Trippy effects. Another cool Trippy effect is the Kaleidoscope Transition. Let's start by duplicating the footage and press Shift-E or Shift-Command-E on a Mac to disable the top clip for now. On the bottom clip, we're going to add the replicate effect. Now you can see that our clip is separated into 4 different boxes. We can add more by changing this count parameter here under effect controls. But I already like how it looks, so I'm going to keep this as the default. But what I don't like are these hard lines between the boxes. Now to get rid of them, I'm going to add a Gaussian blur on this layer. Let's hit the pen tool and let's draw a mask covering all the hard edges. Add some feathering, and now we can bump up the blurriness so all the clips blend in together better. Now let's re-enable our top clip, and with it selected, let's go to Effect Controls under Opacity and let's draw a mask around our subject. Once that's done, we can now see the other layer behind him. To turn this into more of a transition, we're going to place an adjustment layer on top, and let's add the lens distortion effect to it. This effect is used to mimic the distortion created by a real lens. So if you bump up this curvature, you'll get the fisheye effect. Now we're going to use this to create our transition. So let's set a keyframe on curvature and have it start at 0. Move to the end of the layer, and I'm going to push it as low as it goes. Now this is already looking pretty good, but I want to make it even trippier. Let's add this chromatic aberrations effect to the adjustment layer, and this is used to mess with the red, greens, and blues. And since this clip has a lot of reds, I'm going to keyframe the aberration red values from 0 to -100, which will help make our transition more disorienting. To finish up the transition, let's copy over this beat impact effect we created earlier and place it right at the scene switch, and this is how it looks. On to our next psychedelic inspired effect is the echo effect. This is also known as the double exposure effect or the drunk effect. The effect that we, imagine that we see if we're a little bit tipsy. The first method to achieve this is by using the echo effect in Premiere Pro. Let's drag it onto our footage and suddenly everything will look brighter. And that's because it's basically placing in a duplicate of the same footage on top, but with a slight time shift. Let's make this time shift more noticeable. Now by default, it's set to less than a second. How about 2 seconds instead? Now you can clearly see the echo, and you can even add some more echoes by bumping up this parameter, but I'm going to stick with 1. Next, I'm going to lower the intensity so it's not as bright, but if it's still too bright for your footage, you can change the echo operator to screen. And this is pretty much like changing a blend mode. This is what it looks like. This other method is a bit harder, but you get more control. Let's start by duplicating the footage here, and let's place it on top. Under Effect Controls, Opacity, change the blend mode to Overlay. If this doesn't look good with your footage, try something else like Hard Light or Screen. To get the same result as the echo effect we used earlier, you can move this top clip in the timeline so it doesn't line up But for this particular shot, I want to clone our subject. To do that, select the top layer, add a circle mask to isolate the subject, and then just move him over to the right. Then let's duplicate this layer and move him to the left to get a 3-person clone. Let's take a look. Overlaying something on top of your footage might sound like a simple trick, but it's all about your creativity. Now, it could be as simple as grabbing some Super 8 film overlays from Envato and placing it on top of everything, and then changing the blend mode to multiply to see through the white areas. And bam, you get this vintage look. Or we could do something more creative. Like, for example, I have this footage of some paint placed on top of another footage. If I just change the blending mode to screen or multiply, it won't look quite nice yet. First, I want to add a vertical flip to the paint layer so this see-through circle part of the paint reveals his head instead of his legs. Now I'm going to add the invert effect to make his face the only thing that's being covered up, so our subject can feel more mysterious. Now finally, I'm going to add lumetri color to make the paint more orange, and let's see the final result. Now with all of the effects combined, I put them together for a short little music video clip. Let's take a look. Now, music is great. That's not a hot take, but great music paired with great visuals, now that's an experience. With all these different effects, you can make your music video even greater when you use the right effect at the right time. So go out there, stay creative, and keep creating better video with Gal. See you next time. Bye.